is nothing wrong with your browser. Do not attempt to refresh the page. We are now controlling all that you see and hear. We control the horizontal and the vertical. We can delude you with 1,000 videos or expand one single frame to crystal clarity and beyond. We can shape your vision to anything our imagination can design. We shall control all that you perceive until we see fit to release you. You are about to experience the depths of depravity that reach from the folly of human pursuits to the deputy of common sense. Please stand by.
Salutations, my new allies and fellow friends in Christ. I am your humble servant of the Lord, Reverend Beauregard G. LaCroix, and I am here to spread the word and message of the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ to all the people of this vile and sin-ridden world. This channel was previously under the management of a truly iniquitous, malicious, depraved, and immoral individual, hereby referred to as Alistair. But I have driven out the evil, and I have sanctified the sinful nature of this truly odious habitation, and I declare it fit for the Almighty Himself, should He in all His splendorization deign to grace us with His truly magnificent and magnanimous presence. And though I walked through the valley of the shadow of death, I feared no evil, for the Lord was with me, and I was not afraid to enter the vampire king's den of sin and moral transgression. And when I came upon the slumbering demon, I smote him with all the fire and fury of the Lord, and I put an end to his kingdom of original sin. But my past deeds are neither there nor here. My mission now is to acquaint y'all with the good book and make sure that y'all receive your positively righteous reward in the kingdom above. Now I know that most of you are under the preposterous notion that the Almighty is merely a figmentation of the imaginary variety. Allow me to rectify that truly mistaken misconceptualization. Today I shall impressivize on you the unconscionable actions of these truly depraved, deleterious, dishonoratized defenders of the devil and his den of degeneracy and damnation. Welcome to Reverend LaCroix's Atheism Destructified!
Exactly what are you doing in my chair?
Impossible, sir! I drove a wooden stake through your heart, sir. I witnessed you disintegrate into a pile of ash with mine own eyes. How are you alive at this very moment?
Fuck you, that's how. Also, technically undead, not alive. Now get out of my castle.
I've had enough. I can't take any more of this madhouse. Forgive me, Lord, for I must retreat.
Eat me, don't forget to write. Oh, and watch out for that tower. Balcony. We lose more would-be crusaders that way. Sorry, folks. That was an unwelcome interruption. Renfield, would you be a deer and grab the broom, then go clean up the mess?
Yes, master.
After that, would you be so kind as to grab a shovel and take dear Reverend LaCroix and bury him out back with the others?
Yes, master. Right away, master.
Oh, and make sure you don't leave the head sticking out this time. We don't want the villagers asking questions. Again!
Yes, Master. Sorry, Master.
Alright, while Renfield goes out back to dispose of the good Reverend, I thought we might respond to this video on the meaning of life according to God. Fasten your seatbelts, clench your buttocks. It's gonna be a bumpy ride.
You know, nobody asked me if I wanted to exist. Yeah, one day, boom, there you are, and you think to yourself, why am I here? Well, what do you think? Is there a reason we're here? Do our lives have any real significance?
Well, that depends
On what?
on whether or not God exists.
You're lying! You're lying!
Bullshit. Meaning does not come from God, and you cannot prove that it does because you cannot prove that God exists. The burden of proof is on you, not on me, to prove that God exists. So show me empirical evidence of God's existence or quit wasting my time.
Wait, hold on. Are you saying that my life has no significance because I don't believe in God?
Yes, that's exactly what she's saying. Although I'm sure that she'd deny it and bend over backwards trying to make her point without saying that atheists can have meaning in their lives, because that doesn't fit the narrative. How pathetic.
Paul, I'm saying that if God doesn't exist, it doesn't matter what you believe. Our lives would have no objective meaning, value, or purpose. Many atheists themselves recognize this. If atheism is true, life is absurd.
Okay, and why do they think that?
To begin with, if God does not exist, then the physical universe is all there is. Which means you and I are just accidental byproducts of nature.
Right, so?
That means we were not intentionally designed. So there's no purpose for us being here.
You understand nothing.
Oh, look, I was right on the money. I wonder if I'm psychic. Nah, psychics are bullshit too. And so what if there's no objective meaning in life? So what if this is all there is? What is wrong with that, exactly? You're confusing atheism with nihilism. I'm a proponent of both, but that's neither here nor there. The point is, you are taking two things that have little or nothing to do with each other and making it look like they are equal. That's false equivalence. You don't have to believe in God to find meaning in life. Personally, I've found meaning in love, in my own personal sense of justice, in learning, and in my personal heroes, such as T.J. Kirk, Stephen King, Robin Williams, Superman, Carl Sagan, Christopher Hitchens, and last but not least, the Hunter of Traps, the Cheese Singles Terror, the Free Speech Warrior, and Scottish Count of Dankness, the Powerful, the Pleasurable, the Indestructible Mark Meechan. Heed my words and treat him with the proper reverence. For otherwise he may send his army of Nazi pugs to bite your ankles off. 'Tis a fate worse than death. And speaking of fates worse than death, I am going to destroy every last argument you make and leave you a pathetic, gibbering mess on the floor that even your arranged husband won't want. Enjoy your last minutes of sanity before I pull back the veil on your ignorance and show you just how pitiful your arguments are. First of all, there are plenty of atheist philosophers who have found meaning in life. And there have been plenty throughout history. Schopenhauer, Godwin, Dennett, and Harris are or were atheist philosophers who contributed greatly to modern thinking. But wait, modern thinking is sinful. You certainly would want gay people to continue getting married. Now would you? Putting your backwards Christian ideas aside, why don't we go ahead and examine the work of these great men? Arthur Schopenhauer built on the work of Kant and adapted it into an atheist perspective. Daniel Dennett was a philosopher and a scientist who is known as one of the four horsemen of New Atheism. Sam Harris is a philosopher, neuroscientist, and another member of the four horsemen of New Atheism. William Godwin was one of the fathers of utilitarianism and a proponent of anti-statism, which is something I wholly support. He was also married to Mary Wollstonecraft and was the father of Mary Shelley, who you might know as the writer of Frankenstein. And don't think for a second that I've forgotten about the greatest atheist philosopher of them all, one of the most influential philosophers of all time. Don't think for a second that I'd forget about Friedrich Nietzsche. Nietzsche's philosophy had an immense impact on Western philosophy and modern intellectualism in general. Nietzsche rejected the notion of objective reality. He argued that the death of God would eventually lead to the end of objective truth, and he thought that was a good thing. And so do I. After all, what is truth but one's personal interpretation of the world around them? Taking God out of the equation doesn't make the universe any less vast or amazing, you infantile little twat. Waterfalls, sunsets, and rainbows aren't any less beautiful without God. Eliminating God from the picture doesn't suddenly make them not beautiful. That's ridiculous. It just removes a barrier to finding the real answers as to why we're here. And you are scared of those, aren't you? It frightens you that you might have to think for yourself and decide for yourself what is right and wrong. Scary thought, huh? Well, buck up, love. Just put on your big girl pants and deal with it like the rest of us.
Whoa.
It gets worse. If God does not exist, there is no absolute standard of moral value. You've heard of Richard Dawkins, the atheist. He points out that in a materialistic universe, there is at bottom no design, no purpose, no evil, no good, nothing but pointless indifference.
So you're saying atheists can't be good people?
No, I'm not saying that. Many atheists live good lives. What I'm saying is, atheism fails to provide an objective basis for saying any particular action is good or evil.
Oh, come on. After millions of years of sociobiological evolution, humans have developed a sense of morality. We all know it's good to feed a hungry child and bad to torture someone for fun.
Of course we do, but that's precisely what atheism cannot explain. If there's no God, then what we consider right or wrong is nothing more than an accident of evolution or a human social convention.
That's stupid! You're stupid! Stop being stupid! God, it's like you just use words you hear randomly to try and sound smarter!
Actually, you're wrong about that. There is a basic standard of morality among humans, and among nature in general. It's not an accident of evolution, as you put it. There's a clear basic framework for right and wrong. The difference is that our framework is flexible and not absolute. There's a reason that we consider certain things immoral. There are precious few countries where murder, rape, and torture are tolerated. And the funny thing is that all of the countries that tolerate those things are countries with a religious majority. If it were true that following religion made you peaceful and moral, then why are you surprised when a religious person does something horrifying? I'll tell you why. It's because your holy book doesn't cover the fact that intangible consequences make poor deterrents for aberrant behavior. If no one can prove that hell exists, then why should anyone be afraid of it? Your bonehead creator forgot to mention that morality based on fear of consequences is not morality at all. Any lasting morality has to be voluntary. That's right, my friend. Your morality is a facade born out of craven cowardice. Now let me ask you something. Does a woman of God ever experience fear? Our aversion to torture, murder, and rape is part of our DNA. We evolved that way. I know, them darn atheists and their evolution making us good Christian folk look dumb. Sorry, evolution is true. Look at it this way. 40 years ago, black people got the right to vote in Britain. 50 years before that, women got the right to vote in Britain. 110 years before that, slavery ended in Britain. And 100 years before that, witch burning ended in, you guessed it, jolly old England. Morality has evolved as humanity has evolved. It evolved as our species evolved. Morality is not divine, that's preposterous. 5,000 years ago, people knew that sacrificing a virgin to the rain god was a moral thing to do. 400 years ago, people knew that it was okay to burn women at the stake. 40 years ago, people knew that giving black people the right to vote was immoral. And just 10 hours ago, you knew that you still had a reasonable argument. Imagine what you'll know tomorrow.
With that,
Really? Evolution implies survival of the fittest, not morality. And social convention means that racism, intolerance, and cruelty are not really wrong. They just happen to be unpopular.
okay, so atheists need to come up with some objective standard for rights and wrongs. How about this? If an action leads to human flourishing, then we can say it's objectively good. And if it doesn't, it's objectively evil.
But why think that human flourishing is good? Aren't you being species-centric? Why not refer instead to the flourishing of rats or cabbages?
Well,
And who gets to decide what contributes to human flourishing? Hitler was convinced killing millions of Jews would promote human flourishing. And Margaret Sanger thought forcing poor people to be sterilized would lead to human flourishing. As Guy Nielsen points out, pure practical reason will not take you to morality.
Come now. If I'm really as evil as you say I am, then let God strike me down where I stand. Ha! Nice try, jackass. Next time, give it your A game.
Ah, Godwin's Law, my old friend. How absolutely lovely to see you again. You look well. Have you done something with your hair? It's quite fetching. Seriously? Do you have even the slightest idea how many times I've heard that wretched argument? You vile, disingenuous sack of deceit and mendacity. As a matter of fact, no, you don't get to compare every deed you disagree with the deeds of Hitler. Seriously, I thought you conservatives were supposed to be proponents of facts over feelings. What a load of rubbish. I might be emotional, but at least I'm honest enough to admit it, which is more than I can say for you, you propaganda-pushing sack of crap. Your argument is a false equivalence fallacy, as well as a Godwin's Law fallacy. Also, saying that atheism is a standard of morality is a straw man fallacy.
True, there is no legitimate basis for saying that behaving one way is worse than behaving any other way. So it really doesn't matter how you live your life. Your day-to-day choices are meaningless.
that's depressing.
So if there's no God, what happens when you die?
Well, nothing. You simply cease to exist.
Right. So one person lives a kind, generous, thoughtful life. Another lives a horrible, violent, selfish life. It doesn't matter. In both cases, the outcome is the same: nothingness. So how can their life choices have any objective meaning?
Fool! Silence! I require a cup of tea before I deign to answer that.
Nope, you weren't listening, Papa Spank. Like I explained earlier, morality evolves with us, and objective meaning is pointless and unnecessary. I'll tell you what happens. You rot in the ground. The end, no afterlife, no chorus of angels, no meeting your lost loved ones, and no bearded man in a white robe waiting to welcome you home. Also, no punishment for the wicked. That's reality, and reality doesn't care about pitiful human feelings. Suck it up, Buttercup! And the fact that you think you deserve a reward for being a good egg, and that someone else deserves to burn forever as punishment for being a bad egg, says a lot about your moral compass. Nobody deserves hell. Not Hitler, not Stalin, not Mao, not Pol Pot, and not Donald Trump either. Did he just compare Trump to some of history's worst monsters? Yes, and it was a joke. Calm down, Trump supporters. I'm not equating Trump to some of the worst people in history. Compared to Hitler, Trump is simply a minor annoyance. Regardless of my personal feelings on the guy, he's not anywhere close to those monsters. Trump is not the new Hitler. Sorry, libs, that's reality. Deal with it.
Well, it's certainly meaningful if I discover a cure for cancer or save a child's life.
I agree completely. But atheism can't explain why. Scientists predict that eventually the whole universe and mankind with it will die out. So everything comes to nothing. That's why atheist Bertrand Russell says we must build our lives on the firm foundation of despair.
Fool!
Atheists don't have to explain why, because atheism is not a moral philosophy, you imbecile. It is simply the lack of belief in God. That's it. End of story. All this other nonsense that you're associating with it has fuck all to do with the concept. Atheism is not a belief system. It's the absence of a belief system. It is the absence of a belief in God. Atheists don't have to prove anything to you. The burden of proof is on you. We don't have a belief system. In fact, the atheist community is merely a loose association of people who hate your guts. The thing is, a lot of us hate each other's guts. I personally can't stand Steve Shives or Cult of Dusty, and they're members of the atheist community. I don't think they use an ounce of logic, and they'd likely say the same about me. Actually, Steve wouldn't say anything. He'd just block me. Steve is a coward. Have a nice life, Steve. Oh, and boo-hoo! Humanity will die out. The universe will end, and no one will ever remember or ever care. Deal with it. The universe is harsh, the universe is cruel, and there is no objective meaning behind any of it. There's no eternity waiting for us. But that's why there is meaning to our lives. It's why we can change our circumstances and rise above our limitations. Because we're weak, and because we die. We have to fight in order to live. And that's what'll make us strong. If we have eternity waiting for us, then what is the point of achieving anything in this life? Eternity is what's meaningless, not the lack of it. And doesn't God know everything? Doesn't he have a divine plan? If everything is according to God's plan, then how can there be free choice? If everything is according to God's plan, then he already knows who's going to heaven and who's going to hell. What you do here is irrelevant because everything is preordained. God's plan disproves the idea of free choice. By their very nature, free choice and the Abrahamic God cannot exist alongside one another. It is a logical paradox, and there is absolutely nothing you can do to prove otherwise.
No thanks. I'd rather live a happy life.
You're not alone. Every atheist has to choose between being happy or being consistent. You can tell the whole world you're an atheist, but you can't really live like one.
Okay, so you're a Christian. If your God did exist, how would that change anything?
If Christianity is true, then each one of us is here for a reason. And life does not end at the grave. And God, He's the absolute standard of goodness. He knows you, He loves you, and He intentionally created you. So your life ultimately does have objective meaning, value, and purpose. That means you can live a life that's both happy and consistent.
You know what? I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to let this next part be a surprise.
So God is the absolute moral standard of goodness. Really? That's what you think? Then let me ask you a question. Which God? The one that strikes people with lightning bolts, the one that makes you sacrifice virgins, the one that hangs out with the Valkyries, the kooky Scientology one, or maybe it's that one that murdered everyone on the planet that one time. There are a lot of gods out there. I just named 1% of them. How do you know that your God is the right God? But the Bible says stop. The Bible does not prove the existence of God. In fact, it doesn't have any proof for 90% of its content. Hell, there's no real proof that Jesus even existed in the first place. In fact, most historians think Jesus was not one person, but several, if he ever existed at all. And the Savior rising from the grave idea is nothing new to Christianity. The Egyptians had it, the Greeks had it, the Sumerians had it, and all of them predate Christianity. The real creators of the Bible needed a compelling reason to get people to believe their bullshit. So they did what countless religions have done before them. And they stole an idea from a religion that came before theirs. It's a time-honored tradition for the founders of a religion. If you don't have a convincing idea, steal one. And the gays, the atheists, and the racial minorities that have been treated like shit for most of history are not really feeling the love of God here. Furthermore, it doesn't matter to me whether I was intelligently designed or whether I'm simply a product of evolution. That doesn't matter at all to me. It's not going to change how I live my life. And it's not going to change my opinion of God. Like I said to Pastor John, think of the rivers, no, the oceans of blood that have been spilled by humans throughout the entirety of history. And if you'd like to know exactly how much blood that is, watch my video response to Pastor John. I calculate the whole thing. Trust me, it's absolutely horrifying. God has never lifted a finger to help anyone. He never saved the women who were raped during the Crusades. He never rescued the people who were tortured during the Inquisition. He has never stopped a single murder. He has never freed a single slave. He has never ended a single war. And he didn't intervene on behalf of that starving child in Africa that just died 2 seconds ago. God has never saved a single person, not even one. Instead, God tells women that they have to marry their rapists. He tells you that you can own slaves, that you can beat them as long as you don't beat them too hard. And according to the Bible, He has actually started several wars, destroyed 2 entire cities, not to mention exterminating the entire planet one time. The being you call the absolute moral authority committed planetary genocide. And you have the audacity to lecture me on morality. You have no moral ground upon which to stand. And with every word you say, my disgust for you grows. You are wretched. Oh, but wait, it gets better. The things I mentioned earlier, that's only 10% of all the horrible shit in the Bible. But wait, there's more. Most of the good things that the Bible preaches are ignored by mainstream Christianity. Love thy neighbor? Not if they're gay. Do unto others? Only works if they worship the same imaginary friend as you. You people aren't moral. And neither is your God. Your God is a crutch for you to lean on, allowing you to justify and excuse all the horrible things that you do. Because at the end of the day, if you say, I'm really sorry, God, I know raping that little boy was wrong, and I genuinely apologize for it, then you can still go to heaven after you say 3 Hail Marys and 10 Our Fathers or whatever. If that's all it takes to forgive your sins, then heaven has probably exceeded its carrying capacity at this point. And now there's super heaven, where all the truly moral people you go. And you'll go to normie heaven, with lawyers, salesmen, and politicians, plus your good old Uncle Joe, who got a bit too carried away with the ticket. Have fun. Oh, and tell Uncle Joe that he was right about God's attitude towards pedophiles. Tell him that I owe him $50 when I get up there. Just kidding. There is no heaven. You're gonna rot in the ground, and no amount of worship will save you. You're gonna die alone. Your beliefs can't save you from reality, and neither can they save you from the cold embrace of the Reaper. Why don't you think about that when you tuck yourself into bed tonight?
I don't deal in legends. I deal in facts. And here's a fact. By the end of this, you are going to be crying like a little bitch.
Well, that doesn't prove Christianity's true.
Agreed. I'm simply pointing out that for Christians, living a life that is both happy and consistent is possible. For atheists, it's not. So what are you going to choose?
You know, I think I have an insta-fix for this situation. I'm going to blow you and this whole miserable planet to nothing! Isn't that fun?
You're right. Nothing you have said proves Christianity is true. Your entire premise for saying that atheism has no moral basis is a lie designed to attack a position that simply isn't there. And it can't even do that right, because like you said, your argument does not prove that God exists. You can't be consistent if what you believe is bullshit. And that's exactly what your argument is. Bullshit. Your argument is inexcusably, unaccountably, and irredeemably bad. You fail in ways that make me suspect that when your school counselor said, you can do anything you want, you took that as a personal challenge to make the poor man regret those words and eventually commit suicide. That is how utterly sophomoric your attempts to justify your beliefs are. Your premise is broken, your points are non-existent, and your conclusion is one that a primary school student could refute. Your brain is the size of a marble and twice as smooth. There is a sign in the place in your skull where your brain should be that says, "Abandon all hope, ye who enter here." Dishonor. Dishonor on your whole family. Dishonor on you. Dishonor on your holy book. Renfield, make a note of this. Dishonor on Christianity for perpetuating this irrational, obtuse, and utterly infantile attempt at refuting an atheist argument. I award you no points, and I suggest that you have a brain transplant with a baboon. I think you'll be better off flinging your own dung at other people, rather than trying to make coherent arguments, and it'll sure be more entertaining to watch. Enjoy the everlasting agony of knowing just how ignorant you really are. Enjoy the eternal torment of being a complete laughingstock in the scientific community. It's the closest to an afterlife that you'll get. Savor it until your blood turns to dust. For now, I'll bid you adieu. You'll be seeing me again in your nightmares. Pleasant dreams. Well, this looks like the end. I'm the deputy of common sense. I dispense swift justice to those who aren't so swift. Now, bon nuit to you.
Nothing matters anymore. Maybe I'm crazy. Crazy.